Emily Holth is with us, and you own a company called Sustainable Solution Services, and you do like mediation and those types of things. 'Tis the season. We got Christmas. We've got stage checks. We've got finals. We got a lot of stress, and Thanksgiving coming up. A lot of stressors coming up.
Absolutely. All kinds of opportunities for conversations and conflict and stress. Yeah.
And we kind of want to talk today about stressors and de-escalation and, just kind of encompassing all of that. And you've got quite the background. You actually own a company in town that kind of handles a lot of that, don't you?
Yes. Yeah, so I own my own business, Sustainable Solution Services, where I do professional conflict resolution. So that's my main thing. And then, my husband owns a couple of businesses as well.
Okay.
That I'm a little more hands off with. But yeah.
So you kind of have your hands in a lot of pots. You've got the Toasted Frog.
Yep.
And then I think maybe a few people have heard of the Urban Stampede.
Yes. Yes.
And then your company, Sustainable Solution Services. So what is the core of what you do there?
Okay. So I do quite a bit of mediation, one-on-one coaching. So I have a contract with the University of North Dakota. So I do the conflict resolution for the university. So faculty, staff, and students who are maybe not getting along, not seeing eye to eye, and need someone to help out, a neutral third party to help out. That's what I do. So I do a lot of that. And then I also do quite a bit of training sessions for the university as well. Kind of your basic conflict resolution. I also do, how to handle difficult conversations. I do some time management stuff. And then really whatever people need or want to. I cater to whatever departments are looking for or student organizations or whoever needs anything.
How do you handle, because everyone can't get along with everybody. It's just,
Right.
But you can be adults about it, obviously.
Yep.
Where do you start with something like that? Where do you go, all right, we're going to talk about this and we're going to figure out a common ground? I suppose it was maybe where you start, like some sort of a common ground.
Well, so typically, if there's two people that are, not seeing eye to eye or having some issues, I will usually meet with those two individually first and kind of get a feel for where they're at. Like, where did this all start? What's been happening? What's not working? And then, what would be your goals to move forward with this person? Because typically they live with them or they work with them or,
Sure.
they are going to have an ongoing relationship with them. And so usually what it is something has happened and they have not talked it through, right? And they just let it linger and linger and linger. Pretty soon then they're, calling me or reaching out and saying, please help us. We can't work together anymore.
And it might not be fault of their own. They maybe have never been exposed to this situation on having the tools on how to handle it.
Absolutely. Yes. If you think back even to like when you were in your early years in school, elementary school, middle school, high school, you don't really learn about how to manage conflict.
Yeah.
We kind of like wing it. We base it off what we saw maybe growing up in our homes, things like that. And then we're like, oh, I guess that's how you do it. So that's, and it's not always the best
Right.
way
Yeah.
to go about it. So it's really helping people understand different ways of maybe going about it to better those relationships.
Are you a UND grad?
Yes.
You are?
Yes.
Okay, so you're from the area then.
Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
Did you ever have conflict back then that you needed help with? Is that what kind of got you into it, or?
No, and it's I have a degree in psychology. So my thought was I'm going to go to grad school and get a PhD and be a psychologist,
Yeah.
But life happens and it takes you in different directions. And I kind of got into the training piece of my role and really liked being a trainer. I was a trainer for a long time for a large financial institution. And then when I moved back to Grand Forks, there was an opportunity at the Conflict Resolution Center, and they did a lot of training. So that's what drew me there. But then they also, a big part of it was mediation. And so I learned how to do mediation, and that became part of kind of what I do. So that's how I got into it.
Is there ever a situation where you're like, I 100% agree with this person, but I have to try and mediate the two together? Or are you as neutral as you can possibly be?
Yes, so that's a great question. When I do my one-on-ones with people, So there's two people not getting along. They're not seeing eye to eye. I meet with one of them. And, just human nature, you think to yourself, wow, I'd be mad too. Like, this seems horrible. I can't believe you were treated that way. You really empathize with them and so on and so forth. And then you kind of have this thought in your mind about what this next meeting's going to be like, right? Like, because they've already filled you in on some of the information.
You've seen one side of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the other person comes and sits down. And it's really interesting because then I'm thinking, oh, well, they didn't tell me that part.
Yeah.
Or, oh, I didn't realize, that was part of it. Oh, it's almost like then I start to think, okay, I get it. And it's more so, it's like I can empathize and kind of see both of their points of view. And it really is that they just haven't had the conversation with one another. It's like the same situation happened, but they see it very differently.
Sure.
And it's not wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Either one of, they're not right or wrong. They're not seeing eye to eye and they don't understand the perspective of the other person.
So you're basically building a timeline, basically, taking their story, and kind of piecing everything together and then figuring out a path to try and make it work as best you can.
Yeah, kind of. So they'll eventually, so my role is really to just support them in having the conversation so that they can start understanding each other better, kind of like I did in their one-on-ones, right? So it's just helping them to be able to kind of share, well, this was the impact on me, or this is how I perceived that situation. And so then you start to see, like if you get them in actual mediation, you start to hear them say things like, well, I didn't realize you felt that way. Or I had no idea that that's why you did what you did. If I would have known that, like none of this would have happened, right? So it's a lot of like these aha moments. And they're starting to understand why, they got in this mess in the first place.
It's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
It's got to be frustrating for both sides when you literally probably could have gone out to eat and had the same conversation and fixed it.
Yep.
But now we have to get somebody else involved because maybe they're being a little bullheaded, with each other, and it just wasn't going to happen any other way. So.
Absolutely.
How do you see, or how do you address students that that maybe disagree with their instructors or their professors? How does that kind of come about and dealt with?
Yeah. So I try to coach them on how do you have that conversation with that professor, right? Or with that person that you're having the struggle with, or you're not disagreeing or you're not agreeing with. How do you start the conversation? How do you engage in that conversation? And in my mind, if a student is willing to have that conversation, it shows that they care, right? It shows that they want to better understand, or they want to maybe understand a little bit more where they're coming from, or maybe the why behind what they're requiring them to do or whatever. And so as we talk through that, it seems like they get more comfortable with, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I just need to know how to do this. That's what I'm uncomfortable with, is what do I even say when I walk in there, right? How do I get this started? And so we talk through some of those steps on what words to use, how do you say it? We might even do a little role play where they can practice on me, get feedback, that kind of thing.
And it's an authoritarian, not authoritarian, but authority figure that they're trying to address. And that can be very difficult.
Absolutely.
One of the things I tell my students is the very first day, I always tell them, if you have a problem with me, with the simulator we teach in the course, you got to speak up. You have to say something. You're spending a lot of money. I got to make sure that you're getting your money's worth.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to do the same to you. If you're doing something wrong, I'm going to address it. And so it's got to be a two-way street there. For
absolutely.
both people.
And I think that's an awesome way to set the expectation with students too, so that they know, oh, I can go to him with whatever's going on. I think sometimes when they don't get that, then it's like, oh, can I even ask this question, or can I address this? And that's a little bit scary.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So those students that are, having maybe an issue with a professor or something, and now we're stacking on finals and stuff and are starting to feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here?
Yeah. I think making sure that they're thinking about urgent versus important, right? When they're thinking about what are all the things I need to do, and maybe that's even breaking it down by class, right? Or responsibility or whatever. Getting those things out of their head where they're all stressed out, writing it down or typing it, however they want to do it, right? Depending on the technology. and really writing down, okay, here's what I need to do, right, by the end of the semester. Here's the classes, here are my tasks, and then figuring out which are the urgent that I have to do right now, which are the maybe important ones that can wait, but I do need to put them into my schedule to kind of lay it all out so that they can really get a feel for, this is what I have in front of me, here's my time frame, how am I going to do this? Um, I think is always a good way to just get it out of the head and onto the paper to, you know,
Yeah,
kind of
and
get the start.
same thing with my students is I always come up with a schedule. Here's exactly when we're meeting
Yes.
because we're going to have some days off for Thanksgiving or whatnot, but we're not 2 weeks left and trying to crunch to finish everything out. We have
Yes.
spaced everything out enough, and that you can do that with anything.
Absolutely.
Draw a mind map, as they say, and just say, here's what I got to do. I got a full shovel load of this. I need to space it out over the course of the next 8 weeks or whatever.
Yes, absolutely. And thinking about, what some call the prime time for people, right? For some people, their prime time is morning, right? So if you have a super urgent, really important thing that you need to be focused on and working on, morning is probably the best, right? Rather than the afternoon. Or vice versa, if you've got someone else who, no, I really thrive like in the afternoon, that's when I get all the things done that I need to get done, then you maybe schedule those really important things or high stakes things, in the afternoon versus the morning. Things like that can be helpful as well.
We have a chamber here that we go in and we can bring the altitude way up and show signs of hypoxia. And the reason we do this is so that people can recognize symptoms before they've gotten hypoxic. And, when you're talking about like stressors and stuff, there's a point at which you kind of, I don't want to say fall off a cliff, but you've almost hit a point of no return because you have so much left in the semester to do.
Right.
And not enough time.
Right.
And so how do you identify those stressors, kind of like, in the chamber, those things to look for that you're like, okay, we need to figure something out here.
Right. I talk about that quite a bit in my having difficult conversations session and conflict resolution because, and you can call them stressors, triggers, hot buttons, right? Whatever it is. But we talk about how important it is to know the answer to the question, how do I know when I first get stressed or when I first get triggered? Like sometimes it's a physical response, right? It's your heart starts beating or you start to get hot, right? Or you start to shake or you kind of feel that internal dialogue of here we go, like that stress coming on. So there's a couple ways to kind of figure out how do you know when that happens? One is to just be mindful of that when it's coming for yourself, because the other thing is it's not the same for all of us, right? So what happens to me is going to be very different from what happens to you. But the point is that you and I individually know what happens to us when we reach that point of, okay, now I need to make a decision, because if I don't choose wisely here, I'm going to spiral down and that's going to be real bad, right? Or I'm going to figure out, okay, I'm really stressed right now. I can feel my heart racing. I can feel, the shakes coming on. Now I need to make a choice. So what is that? Do I need to take a deep breath? Do I need to get up, move around, and take a quick walk? What do I need to do to get myself back into a good place so I can start focusing again?
I think identifying the cause of it, what brought my heart rate on, stepping back and being, I was thinking about my final that I've got.
Right.
And maybe you were subconsciously thinking about it, not even truly thinking about it, but it just causes these symptoms to come on. And then you start thinking, well, why am I feeling like this? And then it just spirals.
Yes. And so it's how do I stop that, right? At the beginning. And those are things that you can control. Some of those things that you can't control are the trickier ones, right? The things, the stressors that happen that are a result of other people or just the environment or whatever the case is. Those can be a little trickier.
How about like meditation or things to calm you? How do you feel about that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think to each their own on that, right? So whatever it is for you, that's going to help. And I think trial and error is good here, right? So if people have never tried meditation, try it, see what happens, right? Or even just getting up and moving around. It can be different for everybody, but I think that is one of those things that people can discover about themselves too, moving forward, and then be like, oh, that was really helpful. I'm going to do that again.
Yeah.
Right. Or even getting advice from others. What do you do? What are some things that you do? Maybe I'll try that next time. and see if that could be helpful.
I pay for a trainer because I'm too lazy to go by myself.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, he works me really hard,
Yeah.
and I hate it during that time. But when I come out of it, I sleep great.
Yep.
Everything that I've been worried about that day is just gone, you
Mhm.
know, so you really get that kick. So going out and just working out really hard, hopefully you can do it yourself and not have to pay somebody.
Right. But they say those things are something you never regret.
Right.
Like a workout session, meditation, taking time for yourself. You're never done with that, and you're like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
You know, it feels good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. How do you handle, or how does somebody handle, so the ongoing joke in the aviation industry is that when a captain tells you don't touch something, or if it's dusty or red, you don't touch it.
Okay.
Right. Now that's an ongoing joke. It's not really like that these days with CRM and stuff. But how do you handle, or how does somebody handle, you know, we talked a little bit about authority, but when you're not there, right? If you can't help in the cockpit resolve a situation, what's some tricks that you can tell somebody on how to handle a situation with somebody of authority?
So there is an authority figure there that they can.
So let's say a captain and first officer, or a flight instructor and student, and there's a conflict. They're up at 10,000 feet. You're not available. How do they handle it?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing for people just in many situations, especially with conflict, is being able to listen, being able to take a moment and just be quiet yourself and listen to what the other person is trying to express. And then I always think too, like, to buy yourself time, because sometimes we don't know what to say in the moment. And we need a moment to think about it because we don't want to do this wrong, especially with an authority figure. I don't want to say the wrong thing or put my foot in my mouth. So oftentimes I'll tell people, just take a second, and then when in doubt, if you don't know what to say in the moment, restate in your own words what that person just said, with no judgment, right? With no solution, nothing. You're just restating it in your own words so that you have the opportunity to think, did I really hear that correctly? Or, you know, how do I want to respond to this? It buys you time, and it shows that you care, and it doesn't get you in much trouble in the moment. So it allows the other person to kind of restate, and then you can, I think it provides a little bit more comfort too in having some of those conversations.
How about short-term versus long-term? Stress relief, or dealing with stress, and conflict management. What are some things you can kind of practice right now and then try and carry into your long-term, in your life long-term?
Yeah, I think one of the things is, you know, really kind of being able to give people the benefit of the doubt. That's helpful. I think oftentimes when we get stressed or triggered or whatever, like someone says something or does something and we don't like it, we tend to go to the negative, and we think about, well, here's what I think they meant by that. Or and a lot of times we base it off the past, right? Or past experiences. And that can get people in a lot of trouble, just assuming the worst all the time. So my challenge to people would be, really just try to put a positive spin on it. Whether you're right or wrong, it keeps you in a better frame of mind, and it really helps the situation overall. So like if someone does something that annoys you, right, whether it's something little or something big, it's an opportunity to think, okay, well, maybe this is going on for them, right? Or maybe they've really had a really stressful day and that's why this is happening. Whether you're right or wrong, it doesn't always matter, but it really allows you to just stay in a better frame of mind versus letting that stressor or that trigger, whatever, get the best of you. And then you end up being not your best. And then other people can see that and experience that as they interact with you over time.
Yeah. Is it better to address the problem with the person, or sometimes is it beneficial to go to someone of a higher authority to address it with that person? Somebody's driving you nuts at work.
Yep.
Do you go up and go, I don't like when you do that, you're driving me nuts? Or do you go to their boss and say, you know, it drives me nuts when they do this?
Yeah.
And, you know, then you kind of feel like you've gone around them.
Right.
But some people don't like direct conflict.
Right. So I always go to the source first. So if I'm having an issue with you, the best thing to do is to address it with you first. And I would say that managers and supervisors and everyone appreciates that, right? Because no one wants to be the supervisor that everyone comes to with all their issues. Usually you want that person to go to the person directly first. That's oftentimes where I can come in too and help that person and say, okay, you're going to have a conversation, or you're anticipating this conversation with your professor. Let's talk through it before you go there, right? Before you have this conversation, or with another student, right? Let's talk through it. I'll prepare them. Like if they feel like, oh, I'm not sure how to do this, or I don't want to make the situation worse, which is a huge thing that gets in the way for people. They're like, I don't want to address this because what if it's worse than when it started? Like, I don't need that on top of everything else. So then it's great. Okay, let's talk about it then, because if you don't address it, it's just going to be worse. But I can help you figure out how do you go about that. And sometimes it's just, hey, can I talk to you about something that happened yesterday? Would you be willing to have that conversation with me? Most people, they will, right? Now, if I try to have that conversation with you one-on-one and it doesn't work and it's not very helpful, then I think the next step is potentially the supervisor.
Do you try and go lighthearted with it? Hey man, that drove me nuts, or do you just like, this really bothered me? I mean, how serious you have to be with it?
I think it depends on the person.
Yeah.
It depends on the person. It depends on the context. And typically when you're having these conversations with somebody, you have some type of relationship with them. So I'll oftentimes recommend, like, when you're thinking about having this conversation, that you're thinking through that a little bit. How is this person going to respond? What do I think they might say or do? Not that I'm going to know 100%, but at least I've thought about it a little bit and thought, okay, if they do this, how am I going to respond to that? Or, you can kind of prepare for that a little bit and think about the context too. Like, what is this about? Is it something I can be lighthearted about? Or does it kind of have to be more like, this is really impacting me negatively and I need to have more of a serious conversation about it?
Can you be too prepared? I mean, is there a point which you could show up too prepared for it and then they would really go on the defense?
Yeah, like you could be too prepared in that oftentimes I'll tell people, jot down notes, right? Have your facts, have your things that you want to share with them. Well, if you're too ingrained with these are the facts, this is the truth, I'm unwilling to hear an outside opinion about any of this, right? And maybe that's too prepared. I don't know if that falls under that, but that's kind of what I was thinking when you said that. Like, if I'm too much in my, here's what I need to say, here's how you're going to react, here's what I'm going to say next, you just can't be that prepared because you've got the variable of the other person, right? Yeah, I know you, so I know how you might react, but I can't be 100% sure. So I need to prepare for a surprise, right? Or something of an unknown.
And I suppose if you prepare too much, you're basically scripting how you want it to end.
Absolutely.
And then you're kind of controlling and telling them, well, here's what I expected from you.
Absolutely. And I think the best way to go into a conversation is think about, what would I like this outcome to be? While also knowing the outcome could be something different based on how our conversation goes. And I still might like it, right? It just might be something I hadn't thought of before.
Yeah. Emily Holth, thank you for coming in. This has been really eye-opening, really, really good stuff. So I really appreciate you coming in and talking to us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here.